Welcome to the Tudor Dixon Podcast. We're doing this a little bit different today. I have Kyle here with me. So we are both going to be just chatting with you about what happened in Michigan this week, which I think is exciting, a little bit weird. So you saw President Trump come here to celebrate his 100 days, which has been really, truly amazing. We've talked about it a little bit on the program. We talked to Harrison Fields about it on the program. It's been, I think that he's moving at really light speed. The guy he never slows down. Kyle and I were both at the White House this week and we got to talk to people there. And I don't know what your experience was, but my experience was that everybody I talked to was like, the guy never sleeps. We're literally working all the time in a good way. I mean, you could tell they were exhausted, but they were so pleased with what they've done.
Yeah, I talked to Ron Vitello, who is the senior advisor for Customs and Border Protection. And we obviously were talking about deportations and border security. And one of the things that we talked about, and I just still can't get over the fact that, one of the things he said was illegal border crossings at the southern border have decreased 97%.
Right. But that just goes to show they weren't doing anything. And not even they weren't doing anything. People are like, oh, Joe Biden wasn't opening the border. Yes, he was.
He was. And they created this app that would allow people to sort of fill out their information and then be caught, quote unquote, caught, and then released into the country. And now what they've done is they've changed the app so that it's actually now being used to self-deport. So instead of having illegal aliens using the app to get into the country, they are now using the app to get out of the country.
So I wonder if that is, because I was talking about this on Newsmax and we were talking about the deportations and due process. And I had someone reach out to me and say, like, everybody that comes into the country has to have due process. And I know that when he had the, Alien Enemies Act, that takes that away for you if you are a gang member. If you are a part of one of these designated terrorist organizations, then you can be immediately deported. He has commented on the fact that it is challenging to deport this many people when you have to go through a court. So maybe that also allows these people to, like, before you get caught, you can go out and come back in the right way.
Yeah, well, and this idea that people are not getting due process is false. There's so many stories. I read a lot of these stories on the ICE website. And there's so many of these stories where individuals, an immigration judge will say they should be deported, but then they just disappear. And now what the Trump administration is doing is actually finding these people and arresting them. And one of the things I said was, it's so amazing to me because some of these raids and arrests and all of that happened literally on Inauguration Day. I mean, he was sworn in at noon and they started. And I said, what that says to someone who, I think has common sense is that if you knew on Inauguration Day that where these people were, then that means the Biden administration knew where these people were. And a lot of these are criminal illegal aliens. It's not just people who cross the border illegally, who are by definition criminals. It's murderers, it's rapists, it's just horrible, horrible crimes that many of them were committed in the United States.
Well, I even talked to, and maybe I don't know how I missed this, but I talked to one of the guys from the CIA. We'll have that coming out. You guys are going to listen to that. But one of the things that he said was, we found the mastermind behind Abbygate in February and arrested him. And he's being brought back to this country. And I thought, think about that. I mean, all this time, those 13 service members died. Joe Biden wouldn't even acknowledge it. In February, 30 days in, they get the bad guy. This administration is not messing around. But that aside, that's a whole nother story. I want to talk about Michigan. So I want to get back to Michigan because there's kind of like the elephant in the room that we have to address. And that is the relationship that we're seeing between Governor Whitmer and President Trump. And I feel like I have to address this because people come to me a lot and they're like, how do you feel about him saying, no, she's great. She's doing such a great job. And I have some of the quotes here because he did come to Michigan. We are so happy that he did this because he came here and he said he's going to essentially keep Selfridge Air Force Base open. And this is important to us because it was really not officially, but I think unofficially, everybody kind of felt like it was closing. You're laughing.
I'm not laughing.
Oh, okay. I thought you were laughing. You had a weird look on your face. So I think unofficially we all thought these airplanes or the fighter jets that they had there are kind of being obsoleted. They needed to get a new group of planes in there or they were going to shut down. And Whitmer knew that. That's why she went. When she went to the White House, she went and said, I need you to keep Selfridge open. There's a few elephants in this room. I mean, the relationship between President Trump and Governor Whitmer, which is, I'm not knocking that because I think that him coming here and saying that he's going to make sure that this is secure and make sure that the base continues is critical. But the other one is, why didn't Biden do it?
Well, I think Biden, this fleet needs to go somewhere. And I don't think Biden really necessarily cared about Michigan. I don't think, even though he was looking at Whitmer to be his running mate, it didn't really matter to him, and he would have been fine if it went, anywhere else. But I think this was very necessary for Michigan. And it was interesting, I think, when Whitmer, she spoke for about 30 seconds at the announcement. Trump asked her to come up and she was not prepared, and she said she was not prepared. But when she did speak, the first reason she said that this was necessary was for the economy, which we can get into, what's happening with the Michigan economy. And she's desperate for any sort of good news because it's almost universally bad. But, what I think that what it showed is that Trump is very engaged when he has people like the Speaker of the Michigan House, Matt Hall, and others reaching out to him, talking to him about this. He's listening. And he is, as we were just talking about, he never stops working.
I think the president takes it very seriously. I know the president takes it very seriously when he comes out and he says, I'm going to help you. I'm going to bring this back. I'm going to do things for your state. Michigan, he was in Michigan. He ended his campaign in Michigan. He was in Michigan, I think almost probably more than any other state. They spent a lot of time, if it was him or surrogates or the vice president, they were here quite a bit. So Michigan was very important. He made a lot of promises to us. I think that's interesting because the whole 100 days theme is promises made, promises kept, and many promises were made to Michigan. He came here to say he's going to review the auto tariffs and give some relief there. That I think has been a big concern. And that's kind of been one of the things that the candidates here on the Democrat side have been bashing him on already. Like, oh my gosh, he's going to destroy our industry. So he came here. That's meaningful. He jumped on a plane. He came here. He had a rally. He had Whitmer at the Selfridge part of it. He calls out to her. I think the thing that people are struggling with is, and he says it, which, is part of his charm. He says, I'm not supposed to do that. She's a Democrat. They say, don't do that. Don't have her here. I said, no, she's going to be here. She's done a very good job, frankly. And she's been very much involved with the Republicans. They've worked together on saving it. It was not easy. So thank you very much, Gretchen. Good job. That's the elephant in the room, because people in the state are frustrated. Republicans in the state are frustrated. The state itself is in total disarray. The roads were never fixed. The infrastructure is 41st in the nation. That was what she ran on. We can go through education, jobs are down, everything, illiteracy is up. All of these things are a problem. But really the core of her campaign for both of them was, I'm going to fix the roads. The infrastructure is 41st in the nation. So when he says, good job, that's frustrating to us because it feels like it's just another barrier to get over in 26, is that she has a high approval rating. And he's now praising her. It's interesting for her because it's affected her both positively and negatively. I think the JFK type Democrats are going, okay, finally, we have someone who's willing to cross the aisle. And that really wasn't her MO before. She is not good at this. She has been a partisan her entire life. And it makes her look like she's reasonable. She's willing to go and sit down with him. And she was begging from the beginning to get in there. So I think that also was endearing to him. It's not easy for her to be deferential to someone else and say, oh, he's important. You could tell in the way he called her up. She wasn't prepared. And she said, so she turns to him and she looks at him and she says, so thank you for making this announcement. She doesn't know how to be a leader when it comes to speaking. She should have looked at the crowd and said, we're very grateful to the president for coming out here, for doing this for us. This saves. And she could have had the numbers. This is an $800 million annually to this community. It's a huge impact. It's 5,000 jobs. We're very grateful to the president for finally taking Selfridge seriously. We've been working on this for years. Her staff doesn't prepare her, but she's changed since 22 and 24. She's changed just in this short period of time with him being president. So what does that say about him as a leader, that he took her in there and you can see a difference in her?
Well, he's ultimately a deal maker. And so he wants wins. And she is if you look at the rankings, she's a popular Democratic governor. And so if there's this sort of bipartisan thing that he can do in a state that matters to him, in a county that matters to him, Macomb County, I think he's going to do that, because I think to some degree, he's thinking about his legacy and what is good for the country. Now, she, I think, is a different story, because she wants to run for president. That's been, very obvious. And she's now in this situation, but at the same time, and you wrote a column about this, at the same time, she's addicted to federal money. She wants federal money for any project she can possibly get. And well, where does she go to get that? She goes to Trump. And so she's got to get things from him in order to get some wins for herself. And so she is in this situation where she can't be too mean. She can't say things that are too not nice and offend him and not get what she wants. So she's sort of very hot and cold, whether it is, he's saying nice things about her, but then she's covering her face with the folder in the Oval Office. And then she's embracing.
She's a immature politician.
Well,
she is truly a politician. She's been a politician her whole life. And I think that's critical here too. He's been negotiating his whole life. He makes deals his whole life. He knows how to work this. She hasn't really had to. When you are in the legislature, you're dealing with a very small group of people. You're trying to figure out how to manipulate your own leader. And that's the whole time. It's just a few people that you're dealing with. He's dealt with people across the globe. He's in a different position than she is. She's figuring out what it is to deal with someone on a higher level, because as governor, she really hasn't done that. He was in office the first time when she was at the beginning of her term. She wouldn't deal with him at all then, because she was still so partisan that she was just on the attack. She was very immature as a governor. And so she didn't let him in at all. And then COVID hit, and let's be honest, there wasn't anybody talking to Biden. Now it's come out. The truth is he wasn't even in there. So she knew that. That the Selfridge thing wasn't going to go anywhere, because she didn't know the right people in the Pentagon to talk to at that point, because it wasn't him. It wasn't going to be him. Now she's having a new experience where she's decided to go directly to him. Says a lot about him. She has trashed him. She trashed him the whole campaign. She was one of the leaders on their side, going around the country, regardless of her silly social media videos. She traveled around. She hasn't been in the state of Michigan in a year. She traveled around this country trying to get him to make sure he didn't get in office. I think she's the first Democrat governor he met with.
Yeah, she is. And she was a co-chair for Biden. Then she was a co-chair for Kamala. So she was a vice chair of the DNC when Trump was president. And don't forget the timeline here. So she was elected in 2018. She took office in January of 2019. And then the pandemic hits in 2020. But then you're coming up to the 2020 election, and she's maneuvering to be Biden's vice president. Well, right. So then she's making very partisan statements about Trump, and she's going to, fight Trump because she wants to be the running mate, which then obviously means she at some point would be the nominee. And so that has been sort of the whole, her whole MO. But now she's in a situation where I think she's sort of trying to play I wouldn't say the middle, but she's sort of in Democrat terms, she's more of a moderate. I think she's trying to show that she can work with other people.
Stick around for more of my conversation with Kyle Olson from the Midwesterner. But first, let me tell you a great story about my partners at Genucel. It's heartwarming and refreshingly true. 25 years ago, a woman just like us wanted to get her youthful glow back, and Phyllis walked into her neighborhood pharmacy in Colonia, New Jersey, and asked the pharmacist for an antioxidant cream for her wrinkles. I know how that feels. But instead of grabbing something behind the counter, the pharmacist said, "Why don't I just compound something for you overnight?" And Phyllis used this cream for 3 days. The cool part is she went to a dermatologist appointment after that 3 days, and the doctor actually thought she had work done. So obviously, Phyllis had to brag about the pharmacy and the pharmacist who made this life-changing cream. And that's, believe it or not, how Genucel skincare was born. And that was 25 years ago today. Genucel shipped millions of orders, and yet they still have that same philosophy of antioxidants, that same natural base, and the same chef in the kitchen. Celebrating 25 years, Genucel is now offering the best pricing since Phyllis walked into George's Pharmacy. And right now you can save over 70% off Genucel's complete skincare package, featuring the Genucel under eye bags and puffiness serum, which I use. It's amazing. Also the dark spot corrector. If you guys are getting those dark spots on your face, it just happens. We all get it. I've gotten it. I've used this, and I'm telling you, it's amazing. They also have products that you'll see results immediately in just minutes. These are going to make you look 5, 10, even 15 years younger, and they're guaranteed or your money back. So why not go to Genucel.com/Dixon right now. That's Genucel.com/Dixon. Every order includes free shipping, and you use Dixon at the checkout for that extra discount. Genucel.com/Dixon. That's Genucel.com/Dixon. Now stay tuned. We've got more coming up after this. Think about how that would have changed the trajectory of the election. Had she been the vice president, it would have been a really different story in the presidential race, because I think she is liked. I think she does. I mean, her numbers say that she's liked. I think that there would have been a huge machine behind her that would have been a genuine machine. You know, I think people would have believed in her, like the Beyoncés of the world. It wouldn't have been paid gigs.
Well, look at, she may have won Michigan. She would have had a better chance of winning Michigan and other states.
And now people are saying Michigan is the key to 28. And Trump knows that. I think he knows it's the key to 26 and 28 because he has to make sure he holds the House and the Senate. So he's going to spend time here. They're going to put a focus on Michigan. They also know in 28, if she runs, Michigan's going to go for her. I mean, I would love to say that's not the case, but she has a high approval rating. They calculate this stuff all the time. He has a very intelligent team. They're watching what's going on. The Democrats are going to be watching because they've got this situation now where AOC is taking up all the air in the room. She's out there campaigning already for president. She has these massive rallies. Whitmer has a few problems. She doesn't understand the negotiations. She doesn't understand how to talk about things. She's never had to. She lives in a state where she's never had to do what Trump did, where he went around the country and did these podcasts. When she has been in these longer form interviews, she's come off as a very immature, not a leader, very immature spokesperson. Like, she's more of a spokesperson than someone who can dive deep into the issues and understand it. I think that's how the state got into the situation that we're in, where we have these high energy costs. We have all of this regulation. My gosh, even like this latest thing where they're going to gas the geese. That's the choice that you're making. Like, we have a problem with massive amount of Canadian geese. And so she's like, we're going to take them to gas chambers and gas them. That's
poison them. And don't forget, she also wanted to tear down state forest to put up solar panels.
Right. In a state where it snows half the year.
Right.
I mean, these are not reasonable decisions. She's very easily swayed by whoever's giving her money. I think that's a danger. But she's also, even yesterday when she did get to speak, she comes in and she goes, "I'm so damn happy." This is a new thing too on their side, is as much as we can swear, as much as we can try to sound cool to the young people. And for some reason, she finds that to be like the cool thing to do, to come out and just curse. And then when I was working, the people that I work for, I remember one guy specifically saying, like, you're never going to win people over by cursing. That is a low blow. And you are not going to not just win people over, but you are not going to inspire people to work harder if you just start swearing at them. And that's something I don't think Democrats have figured out. But this is what she told the Detroit News. So she said, I've been working on this the whole time I've been governor. Whitmer told the Detroit News. Sure enough, we got the best case scenario. We're really happy with this news. It's huge for the Michigan economy, for our aerospace industry, for all the men and women who work on and around Selfridge. This recapitalization is a BFD. And then she said, big future deal, but we know what she actually meant by that. Again, I think that maybe I'm wrong, but I think this level of immaturity and playing and pushing toward the edge, she's trying to keep the far left while she's trying to say she's a moderate. But maybe she sees Slotkin and she goes, man, it worked for her.
Yeah, but it's different because Slotkin did not have a primary to speak of. And what we're seeing across the country is a base of the Democrat Party is wildly anti-Trump. Hates his guts. They're protesting. I mean, they're literally burning Teslas. They're burning electric cars because they hate the guy so much. And so this idea that, she's going to sort of play footsie with Trump and that's going to translate in the Democrat primary, I don't know. Maybe it will. Maybe there's a certain sector of Democrat primary voters that will go for that. But it just seems to me like having a Republican like Trump praising a Democrat governor like Whitmer is not going to end well. Because think about the opposite. Think about if there was a Joe Biden or a Barack Obama that was praising a Republican candidate, a potential Republican candidate for president. Would any Republican voter, primary voter, really look at that candidate and go, you know what? I think Biden or Obama, they're right. And maybe we should take that person seriously.
And I think that's the calculation that from the president's team is, well, if you get her close enough to him, she's on her side, playing with fire. She's going to get burned. You've got this political group called 50501. I don't know what that is. Some political group out there that's like a leftist group. They call this destructive enabling behavior. So she's getting attacked. It's not going well for her, like you said. And I guess I am not calculating that she has a massive primary in the presidential. And as soon as those people can connect her to Trump, like she loves Trump, that's not going to work for her. And Slotkin didn't have that. So that is a different calculation for those two. The Seneca Project, they come out and said this is disqualifying for her. She has disqualified herself for president. So you've already got some leftists that are saying that she's disqualified herself. You've got this guy who is the CEO of a news organization that posted, far-right extremists tried to kidnap Whitmer. Trump himself later suggested it was a fake plot and mocked it. He called her that woman in Michigan and led a crowd that chanted, lock her up. Today, Whitmer hugged him on the tarmac. This is why Dems lose.
Yeah, maybe that's why they lose. Or maybe she knows the reality of the plot, quote unquote plot.
I think that she had no choice.
Again, if you're addicted, he knows her weakness. He knows how to identify people's weaknesses. And he knows her weakness is federal money because she's so desperate to keep spending going that she wants more.
But also money. Press releases. She loves the press release that says Whitmer did this and this many jobs coming or this many jobs saved. And that was something that one of the groups just did. I think it was Bridge just wrote an article saying that she promised 60,000 jobs. She ended up with 13,000 for this $1 billion in money that she gave out.
Maybe.
Well, right, exactly. But they actually pointed out, which I was impressed, they pointed out that she was always quick to put out promised jobs.
Right.
But then never
announced.
Yes, or announced. Mm-hmm. Announced, but never came back and said, oh, those jobs didn't actually come.
No, because she just moves on.
But this to her, the press release is worth it. The news is worth it. And she's been good about not talking to the news in Michigan. I say good because that's what keeps her approval rating up. She knows that if she doesn't talk to local news, she can keep her approval rating up. So when people are looking at these races, and the reason we're going into so much detail about this is because I do think a lot of Republicans went, whoa, what did Trump do? I think Trump is very smart about how he manages everything that he does. So he comes into the state, he knows that he helps Michigan. The only thing that's interesting is that you have some state reps. John James is one who's running for governor in the state, and he has said that he was fighting for Selfridge. But Trump was not praising him, which I thought was interesting, that he chose not to put a Republican on stage and say, you did this. I think he truly made the deal with Whitmer himself. I don't think that this came from anything from the past. I think she went there, they sat down and talked about this, and Trump is crediting her. And he wants to keep everything else out of it other than they made a bipartisan deal. And in some cases, I don't think Trump is partisan at all. He's just a deal maker.
He's a deal maker. And again, what I think could be happening here is that he's getting a win. He's, cozying up to her. So he looks like it's sort of, rounding his rough edges. And it's probably tanking her career. Because again, if she wants to go into a Democrat primary where you have people just foaming at the mouth about, Trump is, and they're saying all these terrible things, everybody knows what we're talking about. And here she is literally hugging him. That's unless she is calculating that there's going to be so many anti-Trump candidates in a Democrat primary, Newsom, Pritzker, you just go right down the list. There's a tiny little sliver of Democrat voters who are willing to be more bipartisan than, burn down Trump. Maybe she's saying that's the little sliver, that's the lane I can run in, and that's what I can use to try and win a primary. But I just don't see it.
But you make a good point, because there's a diverse group of haters who will be running. You've got AOC, who's a total full-blown socialist. She takes that group that could have gone to Newsom, that could have gone to Pritzker. She takes that group and pulls them off completely. And that's not enough to win. And then what does Newsom have left? The real true Trump haters that don't believe in socialism. He takes that group, not enough to win. Maybe those traditional Democrats go with Whitmer because there's no other choice, and she gets them, and that's her calculation. There's no part of me that doesn't think she's calculating right now, because she is.
Of course.
She's always run for the next position. She's never run, and she's never been in her position, cared about it. And I think that what people need to know is that she is a master gaslighter. I mean, all of her ads were filled with lies. All of her videos are filled with lies. And she just tells you, you should be happy living here because I've done all these great things. The roads are fixed. The roads aren't fixed. Like I said, 41st in infrastructure, but 41st across the board. Education's a mess. Crime's a mess. We have 20 most dangerous cities in the country. Like, the state is a mess. And that's where the American people can't be gaslit by what she's doing with Trump. I think she also thinks she can win over the middle. And she probably figures a lot of these Trump voters, we know they come out for Trump only. Maybe she can win them over.
Maybe, but I just doubt it. And I
don't think she can. I think she's arrogant enough to think she can.
Well, I think she'll be sorely mistaken. There's a site that the Midwesterner reads a lot called Wallet Hub, and it's rankings of all kinds of different. I mean, you cited the 41st for education. We just wrote a story or published a story about Michigan is 35th for working moms. And here you've got 3 working moms as the governor, the secretary of state, and the attorney general, and the Senate majority leader. And yet Michigan's 35th. There was a story today that Michigan is 11th for drug problems. So at least we're sort of high up in the rankings for something. I'm not sure drug problems is something that we should be proud of.
No.
But the point is, she ignores all of these things. She doesn't engage with the media. She will just pretend like everything is great. And I guess when you do that, you're not fixing problems, but your approval rating remains high. So I suppose for a self-serving reason, that's a good thing. But there's a whole lot of problems going on in Michigan, and she just is. I mean, she literally, I didn't know, she travels so much that I think people don't even pay attention to it anymore. But I read on Monday morning that she was in Los Angeles over the weekend for a book festival. And she ironically said, I'm not going anywhere. And she said that when she's 2,200 miles away from Michigan. And the Michigan media, the Midwesterner wrote about it based on a report from the LA Times, which did an interview with her. The Michigan media didn't even cover it.
But what does she even mean by I'm not going anywhere? I mean, she's got 2 years left of her term. She can't run for anything before that anyway. So of course she's not going anywhere. She's going to finish out her term. I mean, that's the thing. And that's the thing that they lap up. Like, oh, that's great. Well, she's been going somewhere every time there's been an opportunity. She's just been thrown to the side. You know, that she would have gladly gone to Washington and been his vice president, but she was thrown to the side. The other thing I'll say before we end is you brought up the other people in the state. They're not happy. There are all these people that are running for office. They are in primaries. Jocelyn Benson's in a primary with the lieutenant governor for governor. She is not happy. She's calling him out as all the bad things that they say, dictator, whatever, that you can't cozy up to him. Dana Nessel, the attorney general, she's running her own town hall at the same time that he's here. I mean, they are frustrated with Whitmer. Dana Nessel, when we were at the State of the State, wouldn't even stand up for her. They do not like this. And you've got a lot of the legislature that absolutely hates Trump. And they are going to be, it's a struggle because they're mad. Well, you said my song, one of our state reps was mad that they didn't have session. They're getting suffrage.
Right. So her name is My Song. She's a state representative from Macomb County, which is where the base is that we're talking about. And the speaker, who was with the president at Selfridge, canceled session for that day because, they were other places. And so My Song posts this video from the floor of the House of Representatives complaining that they don't have session. And so in
her district, she's
her county. Yes, her district is right there. And so it's like what Trump has done is he has divided the Democrats because Whitmer, as we've been talking, is doing what she can to try and get money from him. But then you've got Jocelyn Benson, Dana Nessel, et cetera, who are just foaming at the mouth about how much they hate him. And it's like they're trying to outdo each other about who hates him more. And so he's got them all and then they're criticizing Whitmer, and he's got them all fighting with each other.
It is really the genius of President Trump, because remember, they all have to get through 26. So he can do whatever he wants to protect the people of Michigan. And that is really his love, is the American people. And so he is protecting the American people. He promised Michigan, he made Michigan promises. He's coming through with them. Whitmer's gone in 26. She has to start campaigning for president. She has wrecked her brand. And then all of these people that have said they hate him, they have to now campaign here. And he knows Slotkin was running with him in her commercials. So he knows that he plays well in Michigan. If you can destroy Jocelyn Benson and Gilchrist and anybody else who's running by having them come out now and trash Whitmer, they have no chance, or they're in trouble. I mean, the Democrats always have a lot of money, but I think what he's doing is very smart.
Yeah, I agree.
So that, to me, that was important to break down. I think a lot of people have gone, oh my goodness, how could he cozy up to Whitmer? I will say, I don't love when he says she's doing a great job, but he has a plan. The guy knows what he's doing. He's been incredible these first 100 days. What you talked about and I know you're releasing some of that on the Midwesterner. I just want to get that out. What you talked about when you were in Washington at the White House, some of the stuff about deporting people, that is so critical to the safety of our country, and so clear that it could happen instantaneously.
I still can't get over the fact that it could just happen almost instantly. And just by changing presidents and changing policy, you had illegal crossings go from, according to Ron, about 7,000 per day under the Biden administration to, when I talked to him the night before, it was less than 300. Mm-hmm. And so you've got and he said it's a 97% decrease It's stunning, all because Trump says, don't come to the country, we're deporting you. And people are listening to that, and they're changing their tactics.
Well, and I know they were saying to Tom Homan, oh, he said Mexico was going to pay. And Tom Homan made a great point. Mexico put troops on the border. What do you think that is? And people have been deterred. So I feel blessed that we were asked to be there at the White House for the first 100-day celebration. I hope we'll be able to bring more from the White House to you guys. And, we'll just continue to break some of these things down, especially as you see certain people rising in the ranks toward 28. And we want to make sure that we're protecting what's happening. But I think also critically, you're going to hear us talk a lot about 26 too, because he has to secure the House. He has to make sure that he has the majority in the House and the Senate. And there's a big Senate seat here. There's a few other Senate seats that we're going to be watching. So we will continue to bring that to you. But thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you.
And thank you all for listening to the Tudor Dixon Podcast. For this episode and others, go to TudorDixonPodcast.com, the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And join us next time. Have a blessed day.